I've had a busy few weeks over the summer. I had a couple of weeks off, and during that time I was never staying in a house with less than 7 others. We had some friends come to visit us and we went away with family, and wherever we were it was busy, bustling and lovely, though quite tiring as well. Then last Thursday, my wife took our 2 children and went away for a long weekend to visit her brother. And I found myself all of a sudden going from all these people everywhere to an empty house. I'd gone from having to queue for an hour just to get in the shower to it being just me. It was strange. It was kind of eerie. It was too quiet. I felt isolated, a little alone in a way that I hadn't for a while. And in the end, I went and spent a very pleasant afternoon with my sister and her family just to feel a bit more normal again. As Christians, we believe that we're never truly alone, that it doesn't matter where we're going or what we're doing or what we're going through, our God is there with us. On Sunday in church we were thinking about the story of Joseph. Now, Joseph found himself in all sorts of different situations. He was a favourite child, a hated brother. He was put in a pit, sold into slavery, where he ended up rising to manage his master's house. Then he found himself in prison, and again he rose within the prison to be looking after other prisoners. And eventually he was set free and rose to one of the highest positions in the whole country of Egypt. And we were reminded on Sunday that no matter Joseph's circumstances, no matter the changes in life that he went through, God was always there with him. But we need to be a little careful, I think, how we tell these types of story. Told one way, it can seem like God had a grand plan so that everything turned out all right in the end. Joseph ends up basically ruling Egypt and is reunited with his family and everything is wonderful. The problem with that way of telling the story is that it doesn't help us to make sense of the times in our lives when everything doesn't turn out to be wonderful, when things don't get better in the end. And if we look at the story of Joseph from another angle, we can see that everything isn't sweetness and light at the end of this story either. His story ends with his family having to move away from their home in the land that God has promised them, because to stay there means to die, because there is famine in the land. There is no food for them. The story overall is one of tragedy. The whole region is suffering from famine. The actions of Joseph are a small spark of hope in the middle of desperation. In Egypt, there is food. But we should not underplay how hard it would have been during those years. And then after Joseph's death, in the generations to come, this is a story that leads to his family being enslaved by the Egyptians that they come to for safety, for food. The message of this story and of much of Scripture is that God is there with us in all things. There isn't always a happy ending, but there is always a God who loves us right there beside us. There isn't always a happy ending, but there is always a God who brings hope even in the hardest of circumstances. There isn't always a happy ending to our present circumstances, but there is always a God who journeys with us from now into eternity. This is why I love Psalm 23 so much. It doesn't deny the hardship that we need to walk through from time to time. It just reminds us that God is there with us through it. It says, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. There is, though, one more thing that we can all do. Because even though God is certainly with us in all things, sometimes it doesn't feel that way. Sometimes we still feel isolated or lonely as we struggle through hardship. And this is part of why God has given us one another, that we can be there for each other. not needing to fix things, not needing to make things right, but to be there in the same way that God is there, to represent his presence and the love of God to each other. I wonder who you might need to be there for this week. I wonder who you can ask to be there for you.